I've ridden across frozen fjords in the Arctic, crossed remote deserts in Morocco, and cycled in some incredible places. But this adventure was different, because this time, it went right past my front door. I'm here in Southport. Behind me is the Irish Sea. My plan is to ride the entire coast-to-coast route of the Trans Pennine Trail in just 3 days. From here, the Irish Sea, to the North Sea on the east coast of Yorkshire. The Trans Pennine Trail is a mostly traffic-free route that connects some of the North's biggest cities, making it popular with the millions of people that live up here. I've actually done this route before, back in 2022. Crucially, back then, I didn't have children, so I had a lot of time to do it. I did it over 4 days then, as opposed to 3 days this time. This time though is very different. I actually have to be back home tomorrow night to put the children to bed and then be up the following morning to take them to nursery. Thankfully, my house is just off the Trans Pennine Trail near Selby, so I've got 150 miles to do in under 48 hours, so I better get cracking. I took time to admire the Trans Pennine Trail marker posts that bookend the route and gazed out to Southport Pier with the world-famous Blackpool Tower just about visible in the distance. I chose my cobbled-together Sonda Camino, a last-minute decision as my other bike was being repaired, and headed out on some rather bumpy and less than picturesque cycle paths. But it wasn't long before I reached the countryside. And although it wasn't world-class scenery, it was nice to be out, even with the limited time I had. I'm covering quite a lot of miles in the next couple of days. Got to do about 150, 160 to get to my house. And 80 miles on average per day is quite a lot for me, especially with the filming, because I have to stop a lot. So I'm really taking a leaf out of my own book here and following my own advice, adventuring my way. The plan is to get to Glossop tonight, where I'm going to stay in a hotel. No camping gear for me. Next day we'll be sleeping at my own house, and then the final day is just to get to the east coast and then I can make my way back. So I kind of like this. I ploughed on further into the countryside and joined the Cheshire Lions as I cycled past more beautiful, quiet farmland on a lovely spring day before, inevitably, the first mishap revealed itself. Right, I'm only about 10 miles into today, but we've had a very interesting morning, to say the least. I've been stuck here for about 25 minutes, all down to my stupidity. I was flying the drone, trying to get some amazing footage. It's a lovely, sunny spring day, very flat, not windy at all. So I decided to mess about with the drone. I put it in sport mode, and of course it's crashed. It crashed just there, right at the top of the hawthorn hedge. So I could not get it, super spiky. Cannot climb to the top of that. It's about 20 feet high. It doesn't look it on camera, but it is. So I started to panic. I've not seen anybody in ages, but then I remembered I was just flying the drone a few minutes ago and I caught some footage of a tractor ploughing some fields. So I thought maybe he'll be able to help. I cycled back down the path, waved him down. He was in the middle of a job, bless him, but he turned the engine off. He got out and he has helped me secure the drone. Had his overalls on, his protective gear. He climbed up the hawthorn bush right to the top and managed to get it for me. His name was Alan, and of course I thanked him very much. But if you know someone called Alan in and around Southport, please pass on my thanks. Really saved the day here, but I have wasted a lot of time and I've got a lot of riding to do, so better get cracking. A lot of time wasted. I was keen to make up time. I was riding through a funny mix of countryside and former industrial areas, but it was lovely and quiet. I started to see the remnants of the former railways that I would be spending a lot of my time on over the next few days, before I eventually reached the Leeds-Liverpool Canal. The longest canal in Britain, well over 200 years old, It was used to transport enormous amounts of freight across the north, and now it's a popular 125-mile cycling route. And the signs to Leeds filled me with confidence that I was making up good time. Things were feeling more industrial by the mile, and farmland turned into marshland and towns, and I found myself riding on the banks of the River Mersey. The sections into town were mostly easygoing, but it quickly turned into the least accessible part of the entire route. And I remember doing this last time as well, carting my heavy bike up the stairs, which seems a bit ridiculous, but it wasn't long before I was back on the roads. Okay, I'm nearly 40 miles in. I'm in a town called Widnes, which isn't great, I'll be honest. But I've just joined the River Mersey, and it's basically this all the way to Manchester. Next stop, Warrington, then Manchester City Centre, then out to Glossop. I joined the Warrington Canal and found myself riding by some old tugboats, which were pretty cool. But overall, this section was pretty forgettable. I'll be honest, I don't really like this bit of the Trans Pennine Trail. I think out of the whole trail, this is the worst bit. And if you're going to do it west to east, which most people do, it's a shame you have to start with the worst bit. But the thing is, not every bikepacking trip has to be this stunning, otherworldly place. You know, I'm very lucky that I can go on multiple bikepacking trips a year. But realistically, they can't all be in Morocco or the Isle of Skye or somewhere absolutely stunning. Sometimes they have to be local. And unfortunately, that means they're not that beautiful. The last stretch into Manchester came quickly, but it seemed to drag on. The daylight was fading, and the tiredness was kicking in. So I hatched a plan. Doors closing. Right, I've decided to change plans a bit. I'm running pretty late now, it's already 7 o'clock, and I've still got about 27 miles to go. So I've come up with a plan. I'm here at Altrincham, going to catch a train to Stockport, which is 15 minutes, but it cuts out 12 miles. So when I get there, I'll only have 15 miles left to do, which I think will be a sensible decision. Train will be here in about 10 minutes, so I'll have a rest and do the last 15 miles to the hotel. The shortcut really helped boost my morale, and in no time at all, I arrived into Stockport, knowing I had only 15 miles left to do. Or at least, that was what should have happened. I whizzed down into Stockport to rejoin the route, where I should have turned right at the roundabout. But as you can see, I went left, and ended up riding a handful of miles in the wrong direction. And by the time I got back on track, it was nearly dark. I was bonking pretty badly, and I'd really had enough, especially after the next 10 miles. Miraculously, as I rode past Godley train station, I noticed the final train to Glossop was due any second, and it would save me the final handful of miles. So I legged it up to the platforms, feeling that it would be worth chancing. Baffled and confused at the top of another long flight of stairs, I was convinced I'd missed it, but then it dawned on me. I was on the wrong platform, and there was no bridge across it. I sprinted down the stairs, almost certain that I'd missed my shot. But as I rode to the other side and ran up the long flight of stairs for the second time, I could hear the train's doors beeping. In my amazement, the train driver waited to let me on, and like a deer in headlights, I tried to make sense of what had just happened as the train carried me to my hotel. Day 2. I'd slept well, and I was feeling refreshed again. I'd stayed at a cheap travel lodge and stocked up on supplies, and even though I'd arrived late, I had no choice but to get up early to make my way home. Good morning. Day 2 of cycling coast to coast on the Trans Pennine Trail. Today is going to be a big day, even bigger than yesterday. It's going to be about 80 miles, and as I mentioned yesterday, I'm on the clock. I'm on the Longdendale Trail on the edge of the Peak District. I'm heading to Sheffield via Penistone, and then from there I've got to cycle all the way back to my house. in time for tea time, hopefully. Today should be a real contrast to yesterday. Yesterday was pretty industrial, pretty flat, pretty boring at times. This though is completely different.
The wind had picked up, and as I climbed higher on yet another railway, it became even more exposed. Towns gave way to reservoirs and open peaks, but it was only a matter of time before I reached the end of the line, where things were going to get a little bit more interesting.
I've made it to the Peak District, one of my favourite places in the world. I spent a lot of time here as a kid and I absolutely love it. Behind me is the Woodhead Tunnel. This was a tunnel that carried trains from Sheffield to Manchester for about 150 years, cutting through the Pennines. It's been out of operation for a long time now and you can't go in it at all. It would make an amazing cycle path now, seeing as the rest of the line has been turned into a cycle path, but that's not the case, unfortunately. Instead, I've got to go over the top.
And so it began, the hardest climbs of the whole route. I climbed higher over the Woodhead Pass, away from the busy road, and soon found myself having to do a bit of hike-a-bike. Climbing up to the tops, it felt very familiar, like being a kid riding my bike in the Peak District again. The busy road below me soon went quiet, and I headed slowly over the moorland to the next valley to rejoin the railway.
I finally made it to Yorkshire, my home county. I'm at Dunford Bridge. I've just joined the ex-railway here. It'll take me to Penistone and it should be plain sailing there, from there to Sheffield, which is where I'm from. From there though, quite a long way to go to my house still.
This line was really quiet with some funny sculptures as it weaved through open farmland again with beautiful views across the countryside. I hardly saw anyone as I went under old railway bridges and into long tunnels. It wasn't long until I was back in Sheffield. And after a bit of navigating around the city I grew up in, I was once again starting to feel the fatigue.
Right, so I'm leaving Sheffield now. I managed to go around the outskirts rather than going through the city centre this time, which is good. So it's saved me a bit of mileage. I'm at a petrol station, stocking up on a somewhat healthy looking lunch. Getting the calories because I've still got another 45 miles to go. And I'm getting tired now. It's actually surprisingly warm today, so I'm glad I'm in the shade. Feeling tired.
And what came next was no surprise. Yet another old railway line.
Another railway. I'm on the Elsica Heritage Railway now. It's really beautiful. One of the most beautiful out of all the railways I've been on this trip. It's right by a canal. Really nice. So I've got about 35 miles until I can get home. It's about 4 o'clock. With filming, I might get there in time for bath time, so let's keep my head down and just crack on with it.
And that's exactly what I did. I spent the last few hours cycling on some quiet cycle paths, past some rather beautiful architecture, until the sun finally started setting over the beautiful flat countryside near where I live. Mission accomplished. I'd made it in time just for bath time and managed to get the two little ones out the door, but I had a long day ahead.
Good morning. Day 3 of cycling coast to coast on the Trans Pennine Trail. The final day, the final stretch to Hornsea. I've dropped the children off at nursery and as a result, it's a bit later than I would have liked. It's already gone 10 o'clock and I'm only really just on my way, which means I'm going to have to push it again today. Did 75 miles yesterday and it's going to be similar again today. It's about 60-65 miles to Hornsea where the route finishes, but there's no train station at Hornsea, so for me to get home again it's going to be at least another 10 or 15 miles to Bridlington to catch the train back from there. I better get cracking.
It was a bit of a shock to the system moving here. It's so different to where I grew up in Sheffield, with massive hills and peaks. Round here it's completely pan flat, but one thing I truly love about here is that it is completely quiet. In a handful of minutes I can be out in the countryside and have the entire place to myself. There's also a lot of rivers and canals, There were some pretty rough stretches as usual, but most of the morning was lovely, smooth, quiet B roads, and I even found a little bit of time to eat my packed lunch that I'd made at home.
Coming up to halfway now, and the only problem I've got today is this ferocious wind. It's coming from the east, which is very unusual. So I've got a very strong headwind, and I'm going pretty much exclusively east. So I'm getting a bit battered. And there's no trees or anything, it's very exposed here. So it's a bit of a mental battle more than anything.
And although it was tough going at times, I was blessed with yet another super sunny spring day, and I started to see the signs for Hornsea. And I could feel myself getting closer to the finish line. Once I joined the Humber estuary, I knew I was getting close, and it wasn't long before the Humber Bridge came into view.
I'm cycling under the Humber Bridge. It's actually longer than the Golden Gate Bridge, and when it was built in 1981, it was the longest suspension bridge in Europe. It connects Yorkshire here to Lincolnshire at the other side. It's magnificent.
But something that wasn't magnificent was cycling through Hull city centre.
I think this is probably the worst bit of the Trans Pennine Trail, which is a shame. But coming through Hull city centre on these narrow, windy paths and crap cycle paths with glass everywhere, and not nice really.
As is often the way with cycling through cities, it's very slow. But it really wasn't long before I was on the final railway line all the way to Hornsea. It's long, bumpy, and there really isn't much to look at, except yet more flat farmland. But once again, as the sun started setting, I could finally see the thing I was aiming for this entire trip. I'd arrived at the North Sea.
I've made it to Hornsea. 225 miles or so, coast to coast. Behind me is the North Sea, and I'm absolutely shattered. I've got here pretty late, there's nobody around, but what an adventure. It's just been so different. Every single day has been completely different. Different landscapes, different towns, different road surfaces. It's a really, really good adventure, this. I hope you enjoyed it. Just another 15 miles to do now to get to the train station. See you in a bit.
I knew 3 days was pushing it, but I'd made it coast to coast across England by myself and managed to fit it around family life. So there are no excuses. Get out there and make an adventure happen. A massive thanks to my Team 366 members for supporting me to make these films, and thanks to Old Man Mountain for sponsoring the channel. And as usual, it's time for a giveaway. It's that time of the video where we do the giveaway, and before I dive into that, I need to say congratulations to Paul, who won last month's giveaway. Last month, it was more of a poignant film to me, a little bit emotional, a little bit different to normal. So understandably, it didn't do as well as some of my other films, but I still wanted to do a giveaway, even though it was more of a personal story, so it was more of a modest one. He's gone away with some Yorkshire tea, some Rington's biscuits, which are my favourite, and a bikepacking mug. But this month, we're back to business as usual. This month's giveaway is courtesy of Firepot Food. I've been a big fan of these for a very long time. These are basically dehydrated quality meals that you can take when you're bikepacking. If you just want to take a minimal setup like I do, these are absolutely perfect, and they are really, really delicious. They're not crap, they're really good quality, and they are quite expensive. They are about £7 or £8 a pouch, and they've kindly given me a big box to give away to one of you lucky viewers. They are absolutely fantastic, so if you want to be in with a chance of winning one of these, all you need to do is 3 simple things. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment telling me what you enjoyed about this film and why, or if you learned something, and 3, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. So that's basically it. Any questions about the route itself or the film, please do stick them in the comments. I will announce the winner of the giveaway in a few weeks' time before the next film comes out, and next month I'm going somewhere I've never been to before. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.